Good evening. Bob, I'd like to have you introduce tonight's Madison DX Club presenter and program.
Yes, so tonight we are privileged to have Jeff Dorsey, TZ4AM, with us. Jeff, thanks so much for agreeing to do this, and we do appreciate that it's nearly 2 a.m. there in Mali, so just thanks so much for this. Many of us, most of us, no doubt, recognize your call and have had the opportunity to work you. And you've given new ones, different band slots to a lot of people. I know I first worked you in 2016, and you've steadily improved your station over the years. And finally, I worked you 160 through 10. Still need 6 meters though, and hope we can work on 6 meters this summer, Jeff. So we're looking forward to hearing what the environment is for amateur radio in Mali and just what it's like to work from that part of the world, Jeff. So whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
Okay, I want to apologize to everyone for the delays. There's certain difficulties here. We have electric power about half the time. I have a solar system, and I just spent $4,000 yesterday to buy a second battery for the system, so that we can deal with. But the internet is off also about half the time, and that's more difficult to deal with. So in any case, I want to thank you for the invitation. I spent a long time in Madison. I was in Madison from 1971 to 1975, and then again from 1975 to 85. So I have strong connections. I have a son who lives in Middleton, and I visit frequently. So I'm very, very honored to have been invited to present to the DX Club. So I think we'll start with the slides right away. You should be seeing the first slide. I think Lloyd will have that up for you. It's a copy of my QSL card, and it shows where Bamako is in the far south of Mali, and where Timbuktu is actually slightly farther south than that, but it's quite a ways to the north. And this was the starting off point for caravans to go across the Sahara with ivory and slaves and gold during the Middle Ages. And so this really, everyone has heard of Timbuktu. A lot of people have not heard of Mali, but in any case, everyone at least knows one city in Mali thanks to Timbuktu, which is considered to be the end of the earth. So in any case, let's go on to the next slide. I originally gave this presentation to the New England Amateur Radio Association, and I noted there that my original call sign was K1MMB. I got that in 1957, originally as a novice. It's KN1MMB. New slide, please. This is the house that I grew up in. You can, that's the way it is now. If you can see in the background, there are a fair number of trees, and when I was there were even more, and I climbed every single one of them. Next slide, please. And I operated between 1957 and 1961 in Belmont, Massachusetts, mostly on CW, almost exclusively at the bottom of the 40-meter band, where I got a chance to work a lot of DX. We made 3-element reversible wire Yagis for Europe and New Zealand. And so I worked quite a lot of DX when I was 13 years old. My friend Marshall Goldberg, K1LUV, was my Elmer back then, which was very good on one hand because he made sure the station always worked. But on the other hand, I never learned very much technical expertise because he was always there to help. K1VR, whom some of you may know. He's on the ARL board now. He's written the book on antenna zoning for amateur radio, and another book on the same subject for professionals. We put up 40-meter 3 and 4 element wire Yagis and miscellaneous dipoles. We climbed all the trees in my house and all the trees in his house, and got a series of antennas up and got interested in amateur radio that way. I got my code certificate from the ARL for 30 words per minute, and I couldn't go any faster, so my father loaned me an old typewriter he had from medical school, and I didn't ever get any higher ARL certificates, but I did learn to type, which was very, very helpful. I stayed on the radio the whole time through high school. Then I went away to college, and my room was given to my brother, and the radio antennas were cut down. My ART-13 and SP600JX were thrown in a dank basement, so I accepted that, unfortunately, instead of putting up another dipole and starting again. So that set me off the air for about 60 years. About 54 years. Next slide, please. After college, I went into the Peace Corps, and I went to Chile in South America. I had several years when I was working there in rural electrification. Then I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I studied agricultural economics at the Land Tenure Center. And after that, I worked in international development consulting around the world. And I've worked in 50 countries. I took up another hobby of biking, so I've ridden my bike in most of the 50 countries that I've worked in. I picked up 5 languages that I sometimes get to use on the air, and I met lots of interesting people. I've been here in Mali. I came here in 2009 to Mali, and found that it was a wonderful country with very nice people and interesting places to see, and I ended up staying here. But there was one thing missing from all this. Next slide, please. And that was amateur radio. So in 2011, my father died, and there was a big editorial in the Boston Globe, and Fred Hopengarten, K1VR, saw the editorial, and he got back in touch with me, and he told me to get back on the air. He also told me that my call, K1MMB, was available again. In spite of the fact that I hadn't been on the air, I had occasionally checked and seen that the call was assigned to somebody else, and he told me it was now available again. And the third thing he told me was that there was no one operating from Mali for the previous 2 years. And so if I got on, I would be very popular. So it took me a while to get back in the swing. And in 2015, I took my tests again. I took the technician in January, the general later that spring, and by summer I got my amateur extra class back and got my old call back, K1MMB, and through the CEPT facility that allows people who have licenses internationally to get their license here in Mali. I got the call. I got the license here in Mali in August of 2015 and got back on the air. Next slide, please. So this is where Mali is. I think most of you probably know, but some of you may not. And it's really not that far from the United States. This map only covers up through Newfoundland, but really signals from the East Coast and as far west as Chicago come in quite strong here in Mali. And so people should not be hesitant of calling, even though they, even if they don't hear my signal very strong. The next slide, please. The next slide shows where I'm located. As you can see, the location is an urban area. There's a brown area in the center of the slide. That's the cemetery of Lafiabougou. which is right next door to my new location, my new QTH, is shown by the red arrow at the bottom of the rectangle. And the old QTH is about halfway up the side. So I'm about 200 yards. I moved in 2019 because of difficulties with the previous landlord. And so it's basically a very, very urban area. And it's associated with the kinds of problems that people are having in urban areas everywhere. Next slide, please. There's all kinds of problems with noise and pollution, RF interference. So it's a very, very difficult place to operate in. In any case, the next slide shows the actual building that I live in. And on the bottom of the slide, you can see that about half of it is more or less black. That's the solar panels. There are 32 solar panels, which is what makes it possible to operate here because electricity is off about half the time right now. And we have, you may be able to see on top of the black, there's a white line. That's the boom of the log Yagi, the WeMo E antenna 5.9 plus log Yagi, pointing more or less towards Europe. At the top, you see a second white line going off into the trees. That's the boom of the 10 element 6 meter Yagi, also pointing towards Europe. And about below that Yagi, there's a small shack, and that's where we have our solar system and where we store most of our equipment. Right now, on the rest of the roof, there's a 3 element beam, 3 element 40 meter wire Yagi that we put up, and it was pointed towards Europe yesterday, but today we shifted it towards the southeast to try and work the people in Juan Fernandez. So we'll see if that works a little bit later. Next slide, please. This is a side view of the same building. You can see in the foreground the log Yagi on the left-hand side, and you see 2 long pieces of bamboo sticking up at various angles. These are the support pieces for the 80 and 160 meter verticals, which go down to the wall of the cemetery, which we saw in the previous slide. In the background, you can see the 30 meter antenna that was designed by K9RX Gary with over a long period of time and a lot of help, and that works quite well on 30 meters. Right above that is the 10 element 6 element beam, 10 element 6 meter beam, and below it is the building. The people sell various bathroom supplies and tiles, and the building is the only one that has tiles in Bamako, and the tiles, of course, keep the water in against the wall, so we have an interesting time during the rainy season. Next slide, please. So the solar system is 32 panels, and it provides enough energy to feed a 5 kW inverter. That means that we're somewhat limited in terms of the power that I can operate when I'm on solar power. There's a 9 meter tower on which the 6 meter and the 30 meter Yagi are mounted. These towers are supported by Mastrant rope, and they're made locally. There's a 12 meter tower. The reason for the difference is the 3 meters lets the 2 antennas pass one over the other without intersecting. And then there are 40 meter dipoles and the 3 element beam that I told you about before. The wire antennas are put up with bamboo. We go straight to the forest and we cut pieces of bamboo. The bamboo are not the fishing pole size. These are pieces of bamboo that are 10 meters long. And then there are beverages, which the township has been nice enough to let us put up next to the cemetery. and we have one going towards North America, about 310 degrees, and another one going towards Europe, about 250. Neither of them are working very well. I think we're going to have to get new transformers and build them again. Next slide, please. So the equipment that I started with was an ICOM 718 and a G5RV, which didn't last very long. It was the ICOM 718 was quite nice, but the G5RV is very inefficient on all bands. Chip W1YW gave me an Alpha 76A amplifier, and we put up a hex beam, but that didn't. Neither of those lasted very long. Pretty soon, I bought a K3S and a KPA 500, and then we built a 6-element Yagi for 6 meters. We built it out of bamboo and taped a house wire to it, and with that, we're able to work into Europe. POP YU70F was very helpful in providing the design. The log Yagi is made by Wemo, an E antenna, and that's what I'm using right now. It's about the equivalent of a 2-element beam on most bands up to 12 meters, and maybe a 3-element beam on 10 meters. I have a KPA 1500, which I bought about a year after it came out. And I also have the Wemo E antenna 10-element 6-meter Yagi, and the 30-meter Yagi that I've told you about that was designed by K9RX. And we have various beverages supported by bamboo. Next slide, please. So in addition, we have various ways to let people know that there's a path open to Mali. Thanks to Pete, K4ZR, and Ulmar, who comes here and operates occasionally as TZ4AM, we have a reverse beacon node that works when we have electricity, when we have internet. So it's not on all the time. Then we also have another beacon for 6 meters, which was given to us by Howard W4HLR, which any of the 6-meter people may remember his call sign. He kindly he saw we were operating on 6 meters and said we needed a beacon, and he sent one over, and it's operating a few kilometers from here on 50.006.2 or 3 with 50 watts, and it's been heard a few times in North America and quite a lot in Europe. But this month only a few times, and only a couple of times have I been able to work into Europe. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So I operate mostly on the band, mostly CW, on the bands 80 through 6 meters. On phone, I operate very much de-expedition style operations with no dupes, if possible. I don't operate very much FT8. I may eventually get on FT8 after I finish my DXCC on 6 meters. So far, I have 90 entities. The last one I worked was Malawi, and I've also worked New Caledonia, Australia, and various other places that are quite far away. The propagation from here is quite good, so occasionally on 6 meters. So I'm hoping to work DXCC very soon. I've got over 100 countries on 160, but I've pretty much been forced off of 160 for the past few years because of the noise. There's a lot of noise, apparently from flat screen TVs and from various kinds of lights. So it makes hearing weak signals difficult on all bands, and very difficult or impossible on 160, and difficult on 80 meters. So I pointed this problem out to Zorro, whom you may know from his de-expeditions all over the world. He died a couple of years ago, but when I explained to him that we had a lot of noise problems, he sent me $2,000, and so we still have most of the $2,000 available. So if anyone have any suggestions for reducing noise, we have the money that the kind grant from Zorro to deal with it. Next slide, please. So I'm wondering if there's anyone in the club that's worked me. I presume quite a lot of people have, and the ones who haven't, it's actually pretty easy to work me. I usually work split, and I usually work up one approximately, but occasionally I listen slightly below the pileup and slightly above the pileup. The big trick is not to call exactly where everybody else is calling, which in CW is up 1 kilohertz, and on SSB is up 5 or 10 kilohertz. I really enjoy working QRP stations up 7.5 kilohertz when there are 10 people with kilowatts calling up 5 and up 10 all on top of each other. So the trick is to find a clear frequency, and I'll find you. I'm working more phone. I've decided that February is for phone, and I've been working quite a lot of phone. What usually happens is Europe comes in first, so I work Europe. As soon as I start hearing stations from North America, I switch and let people from North America have a chance, and I point the antennas in the direction of North America. Next slide, please. So the activities that brought me here to Mali and still have me here are really in 3 different areas. One of them is consulting. I got my PhD in agricultural economics, and I still do a lot of work for the various donors like USAID, World Bank, IFAD, and various others. Because right now, Mali is not a very popular place with the Western countries, so there's not very much work in that. I also have represented various radio companies. I've represented Harris for military radios, and I represent Gates Air for the kinds of television and large transmitters that you're I'm sure familiar with. Mali threw out the French a couple of years ago after a military coup, and this should open up some opportunities for non-French businesses, but we're still waiting to see if that actually happens. A big need here is to improve the situation with respect to corruption, and so far there hasn't been much change in that regard. I think if you've been following the news at all, you've seen that the security situation here in Mali is not very good, and it's actually getting worse. There's Russian advisors here. You've heard of Wagner, and they're here in Mali as well. Next slide, please. So the $64,000 question for me is how much longer I spend here in Mali. And when I came back here about a month ago, I was trying to decide that question, and so that it basically boils down to how the security situation is. If the security situation remains pretty much the way it is, I'll stay. If it starts to get worse gradually, I'll think about getting out, and if things get bad, I've got my passport here and can try and find a way to get out here. Air France is no longer flying here because of the difficulties with between Mali and France, but there still are other airlines that can get you out of here fairly easily, and also can bring you in here should you decide to come for a contest or if you decide you want to operate. Next slide, please. So, new projects. I've already bought a, I'm not satisfied with the log Yagi. I think I told you that it's not very effective for DX. I've bought a Optibeam 16.5, which is sitting here in 3 boxes. It's a very big and very complicated antenna, and I hope to put it together next month in March. And if that happens, I think you'll notice the difference in the strength of the signals. That will go on the 12-meter tower where the log Yagi is currently located. Hopefully that will increase the signal strength and therefore get us over, also increase the strength of received signals and therefore reduce the amount of noise. Noise reduction is a main task that we're working on here. We're also planning on putting up a second beacon for 6 meters directed towards North America. We're waiting for Howard to send a second beacon. When it arrives here, we'll put that one up as well. And we also want to improve the beverages. We're going to get new transformers and hopefully make them reversible. Right now, we reverse them by simply running coax out and doing it manually, and it takes 24 hours to do. It would also be nice to have a second K3S and a second KPA 1500 in case anything, God forbid, happened to the ones that I have. And my dream for 30 and 40 meters is to have an OptiBeam 30-40 meter, which they have a very nice antenna that someone who came here to Mali has back at his home QTH in France. Next slide, please. So over the past 24 hours, it's been a very busy past 24 hours. As I think you may know, there's a station in Juan Fernandez from Chile. It's Charlie Bravo Oscar Zulu Alpha has been on, and I worked them on 12 meters for an all-time new one this afternoon. I also worked New Caledonia on 12 meters for a new band. I worked Guyana for a new band on 17 meters, and I worked the Kingdom of Eswatini, which used to be Swaziland, and where I worked at one point. That's one of the nice things about getting back into amateur radio after 50 years of traveling around the world. I occasionally get to work people in countries where I've actually physically been there before. Also, I think I told you about the problems with the power. So yesterday I decided to get a second battery, which means that I'll be able to operate about 400 watts on solar power instead of the current about 200 watts. Power is off here for about 12 hours a day. And unfortunately, when I want to call DX, I want to be able to do that 24 hours a day, because the DXpeditions don't call me up and find out if power is on before they get on the various bands that I need them on. So, so in any case, I should have my solar system working a little bit better within a week or so. Next slide, please. The Madison connection. I think I told you I studied at UW-Madison in Ag Econ. I spent most of my time at the Land Tenure Center, which was located in King Hall, which is on the side of the campus close to where the UW Dairy Store was, which I'm sure a lot of you know where that is. I still have a son who lives in Middleton, and I get up there to visit him fairly often. I was up there a little over a year ago, and Bob Johnson, W9XY, invited me up to Baraboo, and I spent a couple of days, very nice days out there with him. And I still have lots of friends in Madison from my UW days, so I get out there fairly often, and hopefully one of these days we'll get a chance to meet some of you all in person. Next slide, please. Okay, here in Mali, the kinds of problems that we run into. There's the power costs here are 3 times what power costs in the U.S. I live in Florida when I'm not here. The power there costs about 14 cents per kilowatt hour. Here it costs about 3 times that, and the power cuts I've told you about. A second thing is that if you need anything for the radio station, you can't just say, oh, I'll get it from Amazon overnight from DX Engineering. That doesn't work. You need to have a lead time of 6 to 12 months, which means that anything that you really need, you really have to have here on site a long time ahead of time from when you need it. Second thing, if you want to put up bamboo, we can't just put up bamboo. We're now pretty much out of bamboo. Excuse me. So we're going to have to go to the forest, which is about 15 kilometers up some dirt roads from here. And there we mark the trees, and the people go to the trouble of cutting them down and drying them a little bit. And then we bring them down on top of buses in the middle of the night so that the police don't cause too much problems, because the bamboos overlap the buses on both ends being so long. There's also a lot of heat, so that means the equipment gets hot. In order to get rid of the heat, we run extra fans to blow away the heat from behind the KPA 1500 and the K3S. There's also a problem of rodents here. Mice get in. We had one mouse that got into a very nice TWA 400 broadband amp that we had here, and killed itself, but in the process also killed the amplifier, which was most unfortunate. Here, the local equivalent of the FCC is a bit unresponsive in terms of our requests. On 40 meters, we only have the band for 40 meters is only from 7,000 to 7,100, which means the whole phone band is out. So if you ever want to work Mali on phone, I'll be down around 7090 and listening about 100 kcs up. We also don't have 60 meters. We don't have 8 meters, but we're asking for all these things and hope we eventually will get them. The good part is that they do respond fairly quickly. So if someone wants to come and operate here and can send me their license and a few other documents, I can get the license for them here, usually within about 1 month. Another problem we have here is that we don't really have any local technical support. Our longtime Elmer, Denis Casters, who installed most of the towers and the equipment that you saw here, he died of colon cancer about 2 years ago, and he's very much missed. Before him, there was another French radio operator, Laurent Migliorini, who was here, and he installed some of the equipment and some of the installation is still working. So there is basically no local technical support. As I've told you, I'm pretty much an operator. I've always depended on other people to do the technical work, and so now I get a lot of assistance from people at a distance, but there's no one here locally to help out. Next slide, please. So if you'd like to come to Mali, as I mentioned earlier, with about 1 month's notice, it's possible to get you a license. If someone wanted to come and operate a contest here as a single operator, we could accommodate them here. We have an extra room. And now with the extra solar power, we can make sure there's an air conditioner that works there. But if people wanted to come and as a group and operated a multi operation, that might also be possible to find them a place where that could be operated. Getting things in here through customs can be a hassle, but we now have a company in Philadelphia that sends containers every month or so. So what we do is we put things together in a plastic tote or a barrel, and then we seal it well, and they send it over here, and it gets over here. So say 50 pounds of equipment will cost about $100 to get here, and it takes about 2 months, and the company handles everything. So we do have some ways of getting things over from the States. Its security here is not very good, as you've probably heard from the State Department warnings, but it's not, here in Bamako at least, it's not that bad. Outside in rural areas, the government does not really control very much. Most of it's controlled by the rebels and the jihadis. Now, in order to come to Mali, you need a visa, but that's not too difficult to get. It might perhaps require a visit to the embassy in Washington, D.C. I'm not sure about that, but I'll be checking. Next slide, please. Okay. Where am I when I'm not in Mali? Well, when I'm not in Mali, I'm in Miami, and I find so many things very, very similar. In Mali, there's a lot of corruption, as I think I told you earlier, and in Miami, there has traditionally been a lot of corruption, although we have a new mayor, and she's doing a lot to try and get rid of it. We had one big win in which an environmentally sensitive area not far from my house, we managed to get that, the development of that area eliminated, and that was the first time that developers have ever lost a big fight in Miami. So the corruption is ending a bit in Miami. I'm very hopeful that something like that may happen here in Mali. The seasons even are the same. The dry season, we have a very long dry season here from October through May. And we have the same thing in Miami. The rainy season is June through September. And the people here are very nice. There's a small group of amateur radio operators, of which the only one who's really operating is me in Miami. There's also 2 radio clubs, the Everglades Radio Club in Homestead, W4SVI. I'm a member of that. And then there's also the Dade Radio Club of Miami, W4NVU, and I also am a member of that. So there's a lot of similarities between Mali and Miami. The only difference is that here in Mali, most business is done in French. In Miami, it's in Spanish, but I was fortunate to be able to learn those 2 languages along with a couple of other ones. Next slide, please. So this is where I live in Miami. I don't have a station yet. This is the front of the house, but in the back, there's a big open backyard and plenty of room to put up a tower, which is something that I plan to do when I get back. And let's see, next slide. So conclusions from all this. I've been so fortunate to get back into amateur radio. I hadn't realized that it was something that I missed. It's like being a teenager all over again. And it's brought me many, many friends from all over the world. You've seen people that I don't know sending beacons and providing technical support for the station. Wonderful people like W4VAB who died. People like Peter Cross who took over from him, and Greg Carter, my current QSL manager, KX4R. These people all help out voluntarily. And I've gotten so much help from people overseas troubleshooting N1MM Plus, which I use for logging, and so many other people have provided donations and all kinds of assistance to the radio station. So I am so glad and so honored to have the opportunity to talk about amateur radio with people like yourselves who are interested in DXing. So thank you very much, and I'm not sure whether Lloyd's going to be able to arrange questions, but if so, I'll be very glad to answer any of them that there are. Lloyd,
yeah, questions would be good. Any questions for Jeff? I'm not hearing any. Jeff, I wanted to thank you. You mentioned that you thought a lot of Madison DX Club people worked you, and I worked you on 20, 17, 30, 80, and 160 meter CW, new country and new bands. So your effort on the air is really appreciated at this end. Thanks for being there.
Lloyd, there was a question in text form.
Can you read that, Dave? Dave, you're muted.
Dave, I got it.
If you can read me the question.
The question was, what have you tried to do in mitigating noise? Chokes, ferrites, question mark.
Okay. So far, we've put chokes around a lot of the coax coming in from outside from the receiving antennas. We've also bought an MFJ noise canceller, which we haven't installed. We've also run around with a Sony World receiver that I have tuned to various bands, listening to obvious sources of noise here in the building and the nearby areas. And we haven't found much in the way of point source noise. Mostly it just seems to be coming from everywhere. And if we could find point source noise, we could set up a receive antenna to try and cancel it out, to phase it out. But so far we haven't really found that. What we're finding is that there's just a lot of noise sort of raising the noise level up to F4, F5, or F6 on various high frequency bands. And then on 160 and 80, 160 can go up to S9 and 80 up to about S7. So this means that only the strongest stations come through on the low bands. So we really need any possible advice that people might have in terms of expertise on how we could get rid of or lower the noise level. And we're also trying to get one of the reasons for the new OB 16.5 antenna is to try and increase the strength of the signals, because the noise probably won't go down very much, but the signal strength should go up because it's the equivalent of a 3-element beam on most of the bands and of like a 6-element beam on 10 meters. So that's what we've been able to do so far in terms of noise.
Kevin, you're
Go
muted.
ahead.
There we go. Follow-up question was whether solar panels were a problem, not only yours.
Special invite or invoice? For what?
I understand the question.
Yeah. pretty much.
Okay, solar panels can be a source of noise. At one point, we thought that one of our 2 controllers was causing some noise, but then we went back to check it, and we haven't been able to find it. I use Victron. All the equipment is Victron, which is called Blue Solar, and it's supposed to be very minimal in terms of noise. We've taken this this little shortwave radio next to the panels, and there's very little noise there. So I don't think the noise is coming from our own solar system, and there's no other solar system nearby. But I think you're right. In some places, the solar panels cause noise, but the solar panels we have are I think are imported from Europe. Some of the panels are from Italy, and I haven't noticed them as being the source of the noise. Most of the noise appears to be coming in direct radiation from LED bulbs or flat screen TVs or something. The noise seems to get worse when people get home from work from 5 o'clock till about 10 or 11, and then after that the noise level appears to drop. So I think it may be associated with various kinds of televisions. Go ahead.
And by the way, I have Victron charge controllers, and I also find them to be very good and very quiet. So that makes sense. And personally, I had one LED outside light bulb that was just horrible. I finally got rid of it. And my guess is there's a lot of cheap LED light bulbs all throughout the world, and you're in an urban area. And I just really don't know how you easily resolve that.
Right, and the problem here in Mali is nearly everything that we use everywhere is made in China or another low-income country. And but the thing is, there's a very big difference between the quality of things that Chinese-made things that are sent to the U.S. to Walmart and Amazon than to the kinds of stuff that is sent here to Mali. So I think you may very well be right that there's certainly the kinds of bulbs and things that would find their way to Mali would definitely be whatever is cheapest, and whatever's cheapest is not necessarily going to be what produces less RFI, because that's no consideration at all for the people producing the light bulbs. So we've already gone over the entire house. We're fortunate. We had some downstairs neighbors who had some big security lights, which they took away when they left. I thought that was going to make a big difference, but it hasn't. And I think that the sources of the radiation must be coming from other nearby buildings, and rather than from here. There's no one else in this building. We're the only occupants right now. Go ahead.
Another question was, how do we contact you directly? We did have your biography up, and that was posted in our chat section. And if anyone looks there, it does have Jeff's phone number and his email.
Right. And I'm on WhatsApp, the same telephone number, the 223-7653-6775 is the WhatsApp number. And I have people all over the world have contacted me on that. And then I also have Skype, and the Skype is Jeff Dorsey, MIA. And that works very, very well. And if anyone wants to find out any more information about me outside of amateur radio, I have my own website, jeffdorsey.com. And it's very easy to contact me. The email is on my QRZ page. That works, TZ4AM@AOL.com. And I check the emails several times a day whenever we have internet. And I try to reply to all the emails. So if anybody has any suggestions for getting rid of noise or is having problems working me on some specific band, they're welcome to get in touch. And I'll get back to them and see if we can, see if we can arrange a sched, or see if I can run through whatever solution they may have to some of the noise problems.
That's great. Any other questions for Jeff?
Yes,
This is Tim,
So,
Norway
Jeff.
M0 TV.
go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, hi Jeff. I know we've tried on 6 meters a number of times, and you've always had a great signal. I'm just curious if your noise situation on 6 meters has gotten better or worse over time here in the last year or two, and have you tried, like maybe with that antenna? I mean, that's a really nice antenna, and you could probably even work EME if your noise would allow it.
Okay. In terms of 6 meters, 6 meters is actually pretty good. I've been following on ON4KST chat, the 5070 megahertz chat. I've been following the problems the people in Europe have with all the noise. And I think actually on 6 meters, the noise level is not that bad. As I say, I've worked 90 countries on 6 meters, including a number of countries in Oceania. And so I think the noise level is not the inhibiting factor. When on a couple occasions, I've worked people in the United States, including somebody in California about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the signals were like 20 meters at when it's really, really good, very strong. I worked someone from Miami, and he was 589 here, in real 589. So I think on 6 meters, it's just a question of there being openings. If there are openings, often they're not very long. With the beacons, it should make it possible to identify when there is an opening. As soon as I see that there's an opening, I get on. There's a French station that watches for openings to Europe, Christian F4CXO. He's on most of the time, and he usually spots the beacon as soon as it comes in Europe. And as soon as the beacon comes in, if the beacon comes in, say S4 or S5, it means that my signal will be S8 or S9 because of the difference in power and the gain of the antenna. The beacon is just running into a dipole right now. We may eventually put up a 2-element Yagi pointed in between Europe and North America, or we may put up a dedicated beacon for North America only, in which case we'll put up a 2 or 3 element Yagi towards North America. But the question has been one of openings. Where there's been openings and we found them, the signal strength has been fairly reasonable. It's been possible to work the stations. It's just there haven't been very many openings to North America. Go ahead.
That's great, Jeff. I'd even be open to trying an EME schedule with you if you ever have considered that. I mean, I bet you that antenna would work well. I don't know about your feed line, but let me know if you want.
Yeah, we could try that sometime. Just email me. In terms of the feed line, for the 6 meter antennas, we use LMR 400, so that's the losses to the antenna, because the antenna is only about 25 or 26 meters away. So the loss in terms of the LMR 400, I don't think is too bad. So yeah, I've tried EME one time with a station in South Africa, and it didn't work, but we could certainly give it a try.
Okay, Jeff, I'll send you an email and I'll figure out something and I'll shoot you off an email. Thank you.
Yeah, the antenna, as I say, is fixed, so you need to catch the moon just a few degrees over the horizon.
Right, but you are steerable in azimuth though, right?
Yeah, steerable in azimuth, yes.
Okay.
That's possible. That's definitely possible.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Yes.
Comment?
So Jeff, W9EWZ, thanks for all the contacts over the years. I still need you on 6 meters, and I hope we're going to get that taken care of this summer. It's always good to hear, what conditions are like on the other side of DXing. So I really appreciate your talk. One thing that amazes me is, so you rent this space in this building. How in the world did you get permission to put that whole array of antennas on the roof? I mean, you must be a master negotiator.
Actually, no. Actually, it was easy. But the problems you're talking about happened at the other building. I think you saw in one of the early slides that I previously was at another building 200 meters away from here. And exactly what you said happened. As soon as we put up the 10-element 6-meter beam, the landlord who'd given permission to put up any antennas I wanted on the roof balked and started locking the roof so I couldn't get up and turn the antenna, and making life miserable for us in so many other ways. And so one Sunday morning, I just decided that things were never going to get any better. And I walked down the street, and I didn't get to the end of the street when someone came up and said, "Monsieur, are you looking for an apartment?" And I said, "Exactly. How did you know?" Me with my baseball cap and shorts on and looking up for signs on buildings. It must have been fairly obvious. So in any case, we found he showed me a couple of apartments in the building, and when we came here, the one downstairs was occupied, so they gave us the one on the roof on the higher level, and said that if we wanted to use the roof, we'd have to pay an extra $100 a month, which we do, and we pay the rent on time, which apparently people in the past haven't done, and so they're very happy. They don't care about the antennas at all. In this building, in the previous building, we had lawsuits and everything, and people invading the station. It was a real mess. So here we're very, very fortunate. The landlord is very, very radio friendly. It's just so wonderful. We get along very, very well. So, but it's a good question. It's most places landlords don't realize, like as we all do, how beautiful antennas are.
Well, that's great. Hey, could you tell us a little bit about the beverages along the cemetery? That interests me too. And so the cemetery's across the street. How do you get the coax across the street? Is it elevated?
No, it's actually we're right next to the cemetery. Yeah, the coax comes down from the shack, which is on the second floor, and goes down to where we start the beverages. And one of them is fairly short. It's 110 meters, and it heads off towards North America. And the other one heads out about 200 and something meters. And we got permission from the municipality. We paid them one time $200. That was a one-time fee, not annually. And they let us put up the beverages. In the past, they had big eucalyptus trees there, but in order to make money by selling the wood, they chopped down the eucalyptus trees, and when they did, we put the beverages back up with little pieces of bamboo, and people saw them and started stealing the copper wire. So now the beverage is going to North America, which is sort of hidden in the trees along the south side of the cemetery. That one's okay. We use copper wire on that one. The other one, we have to use steel wire because as soon as we put up copper wire, people steal it the next day. So for Europe, we can run a beverage as far as almost 400 meters, but they haven't been working very well. I think I'm going to have to get new transformers. We also probably need 1 watt, 450 or 550 ohm resistors. We're going to have to get some other things because the beverages really aren't working very well.
Oh, very good. Thanks for that. That's boy, adventures in DXing. That's great.
Yes, it's great fun.
This is Adrian VK.
Oh, I did mention one other thing I'd like to mention, which is not in there. My total on the DXCC challenge is about 2050, and I have DXCC on 5 or 6 bands, over 250 countries on most of the bands, and on 6 meters I have 90 countries. The last one was Malawi, and Don Jones, who some of you may know, who's in Malawi and working at a medical mission there. I told him that I needed Malawi, and his signal was coming in on FT8 very strong. He immediately got on CW, and he actually made the contact by keying his microphone because he didn't have a key with him. And we managed to make the contact that way. So in any case, it's really nice working DX from here, and I've been told that in the pileup the TZ call sign is worth 10 dB, and I certainly find that it's easier to get through the pileups with the TZ call sign. So I'm hoping to get up to 2100 by the end of the year. We'll see if that's possible. Go ahead.
Yeah, just let me mention one thing. You mentioned Tom in Malawi. He's going to be our guest in May. So we'll have a nice presentation from him at the Madison DX Club in May.
Okay, that'll be wonderful. Ask him about the CW contact on 6 meters with Mali. That's the first time I've ever heard of anyone, sending CW with the microphone button.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Adrian VK2 with Boss. I've heard you on top band, but I'm still looking forward to that contact.
Okay, you've heard me in VK land.
Yep. So.
Oh goodness.
That was.
Yeah, I have I have listened so hard for VKs, and it's very, very difficult here because of the noise. As I say, we're doing everything we can. We'll try and reduce the noise, because VK is about 330 to 150 degrees from here, depending upon the time of day. So I'll definitely keep trying, but usually as I say, 160, I have not had any luck at all. Even OK1CF, I worked Carol the other day on one of the high bands, not 160, and I recognized his call sign. He would come in here very, very strong. He's the only station I can consistently hear on 160. 160, the noise is really, really high.
Right. Yeah, best time is just on our sunrise time. Anyway, I'll let you loose. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much, and I'll try and get the things working so I can get back on 160 and work you.
This is Wes N7WS. I don't know whether I'm being heard or not.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I was out and rushed home to get get ready for this and didn't get a chance to test my microphone. Jeff, we worked about 6 days ago on a 10-meter phone. It was my pleasure, and excellent presentation. And I want to thank the Madison Club for inviting me and letting me in from Arizona.
Okay, well, that's very kind of them, and very glad that I was able to work you. As I say, the Europeans come in like locals. So as soon as I know that the band is open to North America, I swing the antenna off towards about 300 degrees towards North America, and I try and work, give North America a chance, because I've seen so many DX stations when they're running pileups. They'll work all the nearby stations. I was on 30 meters the other night trying to work the station from Juan Fernandez, and the band was open to Europe, but it was must have been really, really wide open to Japan, and he was only working Japanese stations. I don't do that. As soon as I know that there's North American stations on, even if they're 2 or 3 S units lower than the European stations, I make an effort to hear and work the stations from North America. So the big trick is to be heard. So if you don't have too much power, or if conditions aren't too good, just get off the main frequencies on CW. Don't call one up, call slightly below one up, or call above the pile up. And on phone, call up not 5, not up 10, but up 7.5 or 8 or something like that. And I'll probably be able to work you, even if there are other stations that are very strong and very close who are calling. So I'm definitely looking for stations from North America.
Well, we appreciate that, particularly from the West Coast out here. It's difficult getting by these guys in Madison sometimes.
Yes, I noticed that the people from the far West Coast are really down 2 S units at least from the stations on the East Coast. So there's but I do, I'm trying to build up my own DXCC total, so I'm always listening for weak stations. So it doesn't mean that the only stations I'm going to be answering are the ones that are booming through. So just try and get on a clear frequency, and I'll probably hear you.
Will do. Thanks again, and 73. Good morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Well, Ralph,
Okay.
Jeff, on behalf of the Madison DX Club, thanks, as Bob said, for the presentation. And when you are next back in Madison, visiting your son in Middleton, let us know, and we'll try to organize a coffee or a lunch. It'd be great to get together and see you in person and hear more stories. So it's great, and thanks for staying up. We totally understand the technical problems, and folks have indicated they might have some ideas on noise, and they'll be contacting you, I'm hopeful, with some things that could be helpful. With that,
Okay.
and good night to everyone.
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, I want to thank you so much for the invitation, and I was actually sleeping because I thought the presentation was later, so I had set the alarm for quite a bit later. So thank you for waking me up and making sure working my way through the various technical problems to make this possible. So I really enjoyed talking with you, and as I say, when I do get to Madison, I will look up the club, and it would be wonderful to get together with people. So thank you all for listening. Hope to see you on the airwaves.
All right.
Take care, Jeff.
And
Good night, everybody.
Okay, 73 to everyone.